All right, so previously we set up these three lights, these area lights, and there's a couple of tools that you can use in as far as organizing your scenes for lighting. It's just kind of nice. Um, there's if you go to Windows and then relationship editors, there's, oh, sorry, not relationship editors. I was thinking light linking, rendering editors, and then light editor. That's going to give you this window that, I have my three lights, so it's going to show you which lights you've created. I have, and it's going to, so it spells it out. Here's my key light is highlighted blue, and then my rim light is back here, and my fill light. And what's nice is as I select, even if I'm not selecting them, it still shows me what the values are. And I can see that at some point I set my intensity for my fill light as I was playing around with it to 0. So I'm going to bump that back up to 50. It shows you all of them at once: the intensity, the color, the exposure, samples. One thing I want to caution you about with the samples is, and I started to experience some of this last class, the higher the sample rate, the slower your computer is going to go. And there was a question, I think, from a different class who was asking about how you get rid of the noise. So let me just render this real quickly. Arnold render. And you can see the shadow isn't nice and clean. There's a little, I don't want to call it pixelation. It's more, I guess, what we'd call noise. So to work with that, to get rid of that, you would increase your sample size. And like I said, it's just going to slow your computer down. So for this exercise, I'm not really going to mess with the samples. Another couple of cautions you want to be aware of with area lights is there are three things. So first of all, intensity. And you can see results very quickly with intensity. And you have very good control with intensity in the area light system. If I went up to 140 or something, you can immediately see the difference. Exposure, you want to be careful with exposure because it's basically taking the value you have at intensity and it's exponentially making it brighter. So you can see even just sliding it a little bit already brightens it up quite a bit. You can see how hot the light is on the walls. So just be careful with exposure. And then the other one is, before I get to the next one thing I didn't talk much about was temperature. So if you turn on your color temperature, you can change the color here, but you can also use this color temperature. So to the right is cooler colors, and to the left is warmer colors. And I talked about that with this color, but you can also use this color temperature. It's kind of nice. I didn't really talk much about light shape. I have a quad, I guess more because my room is shaped like in squares, but you can switch it to a cylinder, and there's different, you don't really see this in the rendering, but in my perspective view, you can see the shape of this cylinder. And then you can also use a disc, but for my purposes, the quad is more useful. I might have to re-render that. There we go. Okay. Roundness. I skipped spread. So spread is going to make the light more and more intense. It's like a laser beam. You can see, so that at 0, the spread is the shape of that square, or or a quad. If it was a disc, it would be a circle here. Resolution. That might also help that should get rid of pixelation. Roundness, soft edge. So a lot of these, you just want to adjust them and just see what they do. but it's easy to forget what you're doing. So it's good to just use one at a time and see what changes it makes to your rendering. Again, here's a sample. So samples is the other area you want to be careful with. You set that too high and your Maya session just really slows down, or maybe it crashes. Cast shadows, you can see that that immediately takes off my shadow. Shadow density is also going to help with the resolution of your. You can see how grainy it's getting as I lower the resolution, as I lower the density. Shadow color, like I said before, just keep that to. You don't want a solid black. You don't want this to render solid black. Have some kind of color or tone to it other than black. And then in this section, and I was watching a video about this earlier, and I'm really not I'm not a photographer, but generally, I guess what photographers will do is they will set certain cameras for certain types of lighting. So maybe your key light is you set your key light for diffuse, but you don't want any specular on it. Maybe your specular is what you use for you use your fill light for specular. And you can see that that really reduces how much reflection is on the glasses, or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe my key light has a specular and my fill light, I don't want the specular on the fill light. And then SSS is subsurface scattering. And we're really not going to deal with that. That's, I don't know if you guys are familiar with subsurface scattering, but if you hold like a flashlight up to your skin or your mouth, you'll see the light bouncing around inside the skin. Or if you hold up an orange, that's a really good example. You can see it really clearly, the subsurface scattering, the light bouncing around inside the orange wedge. Indirect lighting has to do with how much bounce comes from not from the light that's directly, but the bounce off of the other walls back onto the character or the object that you're lighting. And I don't think that's not really going to show up very much on mine because I don't have, this is just a matte finish, so there's nothing really fancy about this. And volume lighting. Yeah. So these are just settings you can play with, but just do one at a time and see what results you get. I'll set these back to, the other thing I wanted to point out, so I showed you guys how you can select the camera and rotate, or you can select the let me go back to this. So I said select the camera and say look through selected. You can also select the light and look through selected, and you can see what that does to your light source as you rotate it around. That might be an easier way for you to control the light as you're orbiting around your character. Maybe you want the light source to come from the key light to be on the left side instead of the right side, or maybe it's above. So I just selected the light and I said look through selected, and that gives me a lot of control. So did anybody have any questions about the area lights? I'm gonna go ahead and save this. Oh, one more thing I forgot. And I did mention this last time, but with the area light, in the channel box, you can scale it, and that scale is going to have a lot of influence. So I was talking about the ones to be careful about. Exposure, intensity, and scale are going to make the light really bright depending on what your values are. So if I set this back to 1, see if it renders. It doesn't make that big of a change, but as you scale it, it should increase the, I don't know. It's making me a liar. It's supposed to show some real differences, but anyways. So yeah, the scale will also have an influence on the intensity of your light. I think my problem is my Maya is starting to really slow down. You can see it's not re-rendering very nicely. All right, so that was area lights. The other one is the Sky Dome. So I've already created a Sky Dome in here, but I'll start from the beginning. And I'm just going to, so to use a Sky Dome, first you have to just go to Arnold. Let me resize this Maya scene. And I'll re-render this because this isn't, okay, so it's all black because this right now doesn't have any lights in it. I deleted out the area lights and I just deleted out the Sky Dome. So if you go to Arnold and then lights and then Sky Dome light, it creates this, oh, it's really slowing my mind down. But it's creating a huge, yeah, there we go, a huge sphere inside your Maya scene. And you can see it already lights it, and the intensity is only 1. So the intensity is opposite with a light dome. You don't need a Sky Dome. You don't need very much intensity to start to see a difference. You know, I set my key light in area lights was like 120 to get what I wanted, but this one, if I just hit 3, you can see how much brighter it gets already. So of course the exposure is going to really, so again, you want to be careful with intensity and exposure, finding the right balance for those. But this is just a straight white light. You can add color here, but the main thing that people like about Sky Dome is creating or assigning it a material, or not a material, but like an image that already has a lit scene. So if you go to, where is it? I went to, yeah, Google Images, and I typed in HDRI images, and I just selected one, you know, nice sunny day or something, right click on it, save image as. And of course, like everything else, if you're bringing it into Maya, you have to bring it into your source images folder. So here's my primitive theater project, source images. Here's my HDRI, and you may want to, if you're planning to do more than one lighting scheme, you want to make sure to give it a specific name. Maybe this is sky sunny. Maybe it'd have a sky cloudy, or something, just to you know, depending on whatever my story is about. Anyway, so I select my Sky Dome, and then I go to the color checker box. I go to File. Where'd it go? Oh, it's behind my, I think it's behind my rendering. Try that again. Yeah, so then you go to Folder, and then you select your Sky Sunny JPEG. And you should get results pretty quickly that work pretty well. Of course, what I don't like, so actually I'm gonna minimize this for a second. So this is, you can see that it wraps the entire scene in this Sky Dome, and it stretches it, and you're not thinking, the confusing part is you don't want to think of the Sky Dome image that it's plastered all over your dome as your background image, because it's obviously very pixelated, and it's just, you know, if we had this guy looking through a window, that's not what he wants to see, all these pixelated. It's more using the color of the lighting. It's using the color of this image for the lighting. And let's see. So there's you know, similar settings. Let me grab my SkyDome again. Again, you can play with the color temperature. This one gives you a resolution to play with here. I was playing back and forth. I'm not seeing immediate changes with resolution when I cut it in half. Samples, again, be careful with samples. And the shadow color is, I was trying to, like, I'll even assign this, I don't know, maybe a blue color. Okay. So you can see that it is influencing the, it's making a change. Maybe I don't want it so bright. And then you can set from interior only to maybe interior, exterior, or just turn this off together, the portal mode. And then you can do the same with, I mean, I don't know that you'd want to have multiple sky domes, but you can play with the diffuse, specular, transmission, all these values. I don't know how much influence indirect light is going to have on this one, but so yeah, and that's pretty much all I wanted to show you with the Sky Dome. There's a lot more you can play with it and use filters, but I just find I have a lot more control with my area lights. So, you know, pick your preference, whichever one you prefer. But as long as you're using one of these Arnold lights, that's what's the important thing. Any questions about the Sky Dome, using the Sky Dome lights?
I'm good. Yeah, it's pretty clear.
All righty. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop this recording.